Good evening. We'll call to order the public hearing of the school committee for our upcoming budget. But first, if we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so to start the budget discussions, we'll have Mr. Haddad go through.
Thank you. Good evening. Before you is our fiscal year 17 proposed budget. We've worked extremely hard with the admin team to put forth as close to a level service budget as we could. We have made some minor changes, but I think we're pretty close. The budget total is $15,177,656. It includes a variety of state and local aid, grants, and that sort of thing. There have been some challenges this budget season. As we entered into it, we were about $450,000 in deficit based on the number that Mr. Hickey, gave us to stay within. The biggest kind of challenges were our school choice in tuitions dropped from $305,721 to $216,487. Kind of adding to that, their school choice out tuitions increased from $702,304 to $785,601. Other changes we received in fiscal year 15, circuit breaker was $389,280. In 16, it was down to $311,324. On a positive note, our indirect costs went down from last year at $3,812,608, and they went down to $3,688,556. We've put this budget together trying to keep every teacher in their classroom. There are a few changes we're making. We have a principal retiring, and we have decided to go to a two-principal model in our district. So at the middle and high school, we will have one principal, and then at the elementary schools, we will have one principal. In both of those areas, the middle will have an assistant principal, the high school will have an assistant principal, and Toy Town will have an assistant principal, and Memorial will have an assistant principal. So that saved us a considerable amount of money, and I think that we should be fine because we have strong leadership in all categories. We anticipated some salary increases in the budget presented tonight, but as you look through the packet, the first is kind of the entire budget with kind of anticipated salary increases. We are still negotiating with 4 unions, so we don't know where those numbers really will lie, but we think we have a pretty good, we know what we can afford right now, and so that's what's tied in there. Also in this packet there, you will see the current salaries with no increases. As I said, the unions, we're in the process of negotiating right now. And then lastly, Mark has included for us some school trends. And the data that we found only goes up to 2014, but we were able to find trending data from DESE dating back to 1995, where we had 1,720 students, where in actually fiscal year 16, we are down to 1,291 students. So our numbers have dropped. We are working every day to try to find ways to show the people of Winchendon what a good school system we have. We have great administrators, great students, great teachers. We've just got an overall great system, and I use the word great quite often because that's how I feel about this town. I included in this packet a SWOT analysis where the administrative team and I kind of worked through, we looked at strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and those are the things that we'll be focused on from here on out. We're going to show what good things happen in our Winchendon Public Schools. That being said, the next page is a summary page showing total revenues versus total expenses. And we come up with a balanced budget of $15,177,656 versus last year, $15,233,655. So some of the reasons we're less this year is we've taken in less in terms of grants by about $100,000. We lost the Century 21 grant. We're aggressively going after it. I have 3 people working on that grant probably tonight to secure that in the future. And the other change I think that is significant is our indirect costs are down. So that's helped us quite a bit there. The next page is our proposed budget. And do you just want me to read all the numbers, or how do you want me to go about it? Do you have any questions?
Why don't we talk about things that have changed? Were you given reasons as to why the indirect costs have come down that much? We're talking $124,000.
Yes.
It's mainly in healthcare. The healthcare costs in this year's projected indirect costs are down a couple $100,000 from last year. There's a couple items that went up, but netting them out, that's the real answer for that drop.
Even with the increase from Blue Cross, the health insurance cost went down?
This is the figures, yeah.
Do we have less employees than last year? We don't, right?
And I would like to add that Mr. Hickey has been very helpful as we pulled this budget together. Mark and I went over on several occasions, and we looked at his numbers and our numbers. The interim town manager, Bernie Lynch, came up and worked with us a bit. So it's great to see the support from the town office, town hall, that we've had from Mr. Hickey and his staff. So we have made probably the significant change here is in that as we looked at the budget, I said we started 450,000. We met, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times, and every time just we cut and cut and cut in every place we could. As we got down to the last few days, we were still about 40,000 short. One of my requirements for central office is that I need an office assistant, and there's no money in this current budget to just add an office assistant without cutting somewhere. I did not want to cut classrooms, so and we're already short custodians. So what we've done is we're going to cut 2 secretarial positions, and with that add an office assistant. So again, this is a budget using the governor's budget proposal. The House still has to meet, and generally that's an increase in education, and then the Senate meets. So we really don't know what the final numbers will be, but we're anticipating that we will get more money back into the budget. Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I've noticed that the whole athletic section on page 2 seems to have increased substantially. Down near the bottom of page 2.
That would be the coach stipends
Okay.
and the transportation.
And Mark can add into this, the athletic coach stipend went up about $52,361. The reason for that is last year, there were several cuts made towards the end of the due date for the proposed budget, and they cut drastically in this area. What we're seeing with the $102,000 in that category is what we'll pay our coaches. So that's a realistic number, whereas the number we had last year, it was just slashed. There were several areas slashed, and this was one of the areas. Anything to add to that, Mark?
Is that true with the transportation as well? Just down below?
Yeah, the original budget in years prior was higher, and it was reduced, and, this year, obviously, we're still gonna see expenses similar to this, which, because we have a budget freeze, we're gonna have to make some adjustments to be able to make it through the year, but in order to properly fund athletics, unless you wanna make cuts to the athletic program, you really need to increase the budget, because these are legitimate expenses.
And you have advised the AD to consider the user fees? I don't know when that comes up.
Increasing user fees?
Or even if she just takes a good look at it, so next year we're not cutting. I know
This year, we did a much better job looking at gate fees. So we have a system now where prior years, people were just coming in and paying, and there was really no accounting. This year, we've made a strong effort to, as you walk into the gate, you pay, you get a ticket. And with that, at the end of the day, you knew how many tickets were sold, how many, you knew exactly what dollars you should have in the cash box, where we didn't do that before. So we do have close scrutiny on that. And user fees in terms of what they're charging per sport, is that?
Yeah, I believe she usually waits till the summer to,
Yeah.
calculate all that out, but it has been put forward to her to
Well, we're
look at them.
trying desperately. I mean, my mission is to keep kids in our school system, and if we start raising user fees, kids are going to go off to schools. I won't mention any names, but the user fees are, in a lot of cases, they don't pay a user fee. So we're going to look at different ways of bringing money into our district so that we can support that, so it's not, driving parents out because of the high cost of playing sports. I think sports, the whole extracurricular realm helps our students in order and be successful. So we're going to do everything we can to keep that at a minimum. So.
While we're talking athletics, the athletic director's salary, that needs to be adjusted. Our athletic director is a teacher.
Yeah.
She teaches 3 classes. So really 0.6 of that figure there should be in a teacher's salary. And the 0.4 of that is her salary as athletic director.
So Mark and I have talked, and we're gonna split that out.
Split that up, yeah.
So and actually, it should be part of the teacher salary category versus athletic director. So thank you for that, Mark. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board at this
On
time?
the board?
Do we have any questions from the citizens?
Come on up,
Come on up.
Come on down.
You kind of knew you'd be up here.
We've been through this 100 times, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I just Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
Yes,
And are you
I-
here as
yes.
a resident, as a...
My name's Thomas Kane. I'm here as a resident. I'm also a member of the Finance Committee. And really just to kind of help prepare for presentation to the Finance Committee, just want to make sure I understand how this is laid out, more of a structural
Okay.
thing than anything else. If I look just on page one, first item is educational supplies. There's nothing coming out of the LEA budget, so the $24,000 is coming from a grant or another supply.
That's correct.
I understand that correctly. Okay. The area, we haven't really had a chance to look at this a lot, but certainly the area that Mark and I have had conversation around several occasions over the last couple of years. It has to do with the special education tuition line item. So just want to have a couple of questions there.
And what page are you on?
I am
7.
on page 7.
Thank you.
You got this memorized?
So if we look at, let's say, sped in-state tuition, in the current budget, there's $152,000 budgeted there. There's $109,653 budgeted coming out of LEA. And then there's an additional $12,936 that would be coming from another funding source.
Correct.
Either circuit breaker or special education grant, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's circuit breaker, right?
Yeah. Just moving down to the special education collaborative membership and tuitions, if you would. I noticed on the last year-to-date report, you'd moved $60,400 from the out-of-state tuition account because we didn't need to use it. And I noticed you put it in membership as opposed to tuitions. And I didn't know if that was just a mistake. Did you intend it to be in membership? I mean, membership's always been about an $8,000 figure. So what looks like a big cut in membership.
Are you saying in the expenditures or in this budget?
No, in the year-to-date expenditures.
Okay.
All right, in February, for the end of February, I saw you made that transfer. There's been several reclassifications.
Yep.
And that was a transfer, so the money was moved out. It was moved into memberships rather than tuition. And I didn't know if that was intended to be that way, or is it just and if so, why would we put that in memberships rather than tuition?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at it specifically, but I think there were expenses out of that line, because otherwise we wouldn't have moved the money in. But what I had done actually in the prior year is taken the summer tuitions and the collaborative memberships and put them together. But you're right, they probably shouldn't be in memberships, they should be in tuitions. So that's one of the things that we're doing this year is, as you can see, we only have the memberships in the membership line. The summer tuitions are in their tuition line separately. But if indeed we're charging the tuitions, which is the way the purchase orders came in, and the membership line, then that's a transfer out that we should do and just move both the funding and the expense out of there.
So it may have just been moved to the wrong spot.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I presumed. So then looking at membership collaboratives, I mean, this is the one that when I look at the year-to-dates is always hundreds of $1,000s in deficit, which I'm sure causes everybody a little bit of consternation. So as I interpret this, then the FY17 LEA proposal is $341,186 that would come out of the LEA.
Correct.
And then there's another $363,755 that come out of the grants and circuit breaker. that will be helpful, and to understand that. And I'm presuming then, because we've set it up this way, and have identified those other funding sources, that the situations happened the last couple of years when we've seen a figure of $600,000 when the budget's presented, turns into $7,000 when we start looking at year-to-dates, that phenomenon will go away.
Right. Well, I think you and I talked about this last year, is that, we wanted to kind of change the structure of the budget and have it be more representative from the funding sources. So this represents the local budget and then what's being charged to the grants or circuit breaker. So there really won't be a change from here. I mean, this is the funding, these are the funding sources, and we shouldn't have an adjustment because we have a bottom line budget that's going to be the local budget to be entered.
So when we look at year-to-dates, let's say at the beginning of September, October next year, what we would see in that line item would be the $341,000 figure.
Right.
As the original budget.
Right, yeah. The way the budget was done in years past, it really wasn't structured that way, so you had to go from an overall budget figure to a local budget figure, and then you had to find a place to make adjustments. And obviously, like we talked about, sped tuitions being one of the biggest, that's a place where you would generally say, okay, now we're going to use some of our special revenue or other revenue sources to do it. This year, we want to just identify it right up front.
Good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
That's all?
Well, I haven't really had a chance to go through the budget, but I guess the other
I get another
question
crack at this.
would be just looking forward to schedule a presentation with the Finance Committee. I don't know if you're prepared to come up with a date tonight, and certainly after the meeting's over, we have an opportunity to see if we can find a date for that presentation.
Tom, is that normally a joint school committee?
No, it's
and
not a
finance?
joint meeting. It's the Finance Committee will hold a series of meetings, really, just to have the budgets presented to the Finance Committee, so the Finance Committee can ask questions about the budget.
Okay.
We've got Monty Tech scheduled coming in, I think it's March 23rd. We need to schedule you folks. We need to schedule the town manager. And then that would precede a public hearing on the warrant, which of course would include the budget. So it's not a public hearing, it's obviously an open meeting, but the focus of it is really just to focus in on your budget and answer questions about it.
Okay.
So between now and then, I have some time, Dawn, to
Yeah.
kind of go through it.
May I ask you a question?
Sure,
You're going to have Monty Tech at one of your open meetings?
that's correct.
We
And
can't
who-
get them to respond to us.
And who are you having at that meeting to represent Monty
Who's
Tech?
coming to that
Yeah.
meeting? Typically, it's the superintendent and the business manager,
Okay.
and Mr. Gould, the representative.
Can
Okay.
can I?
Focus to that is the same thing. They present their budget, they explain their budget, explain the funding sources, and, our purpose is really just to try to develop an understanding as to what their budget, how their budget's put together, what it's for, what they earn the state, what their objectives are.
Can I?
Have you received a Monty Tech budget yet?
What was that?
Has the Finance Committee received a Monty Tech budget yet?
Have we seen it? Actually,
Have
they
you
sent
received
us-
it?
Yeah, yes, we have. I distributed it to the Finance Committee when we
Would it
met
be
on
possible to share it with the
Tuesday.
school committee also?
Hmm?
Would it be possible to share that with the school committee as well?
Yeah, I'm sure you can contact Monty Tech and.
Well, we don't have success with that. I will try that, but I'm wondering if that fails, if you would be
Well,
willing to
certainly
provide it to us.
when we have their meeting, when we have a meeting, I mean, I don't have extra copies to pass out, but I mean, it's a public document at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment about Monty Tech?
Yes.
We had a unusual visit from Mr. Gould. He came in and visited our Director of Facilities, and we've kind of contacted Monty Tech that we're trying to do a generator project. And he basically told our Director of Facilities that don't expect any help from the students of Monty Tech because of the way, I mean, we're questioning the quotas and the amount of money we're spending because they're taking more than just the quota. I mean, we're just looking at our budgets and looking at the money that's going out to other districts. And he came in and basically said Monty Tech would not come in and do any projects as long as we kind of behave like this. So
Just
I don't
putting it
know.
on record, not to you, I think, but just that there was a threat, and that's
Well,
not acceptable.
I obviously
Yeah.
can't speak to that. I mean, I know that, it's been there's been some discussion, controversy at the last few town meetings, around enrollment. From the Finance Committee's perspective, we wanted to understand a little bit better about how, how the enrollment works, what's the quota system, how does that work? So we got a copy of the original agreement, which spells out, how that's supposed to work. I would tell you that I think the agreement's pretty clear in that when they talk about quotas, they talk about quotas when they're at capacity. It's how do you, if there are more kids in every member district applying than they can take, then the quota system works in. If they're not, if they're under capacity, then they're obviously open to take other students. So I think that there's been some confusion, at least on my part. I think I'm clearer about what the purpose of the quota is.
We actually did send a Q&A, questions, to our Monty representative, and finally, a team at Monty, I think the superintendent and possibly some business folks were able to provide some answers. So if you want, we could forward that Q&A to you just for your, because we asked about, the contracts and admissions policies and quotas and, revisions and stuff like that, and formulas. So it might be helpful to you just as background.
Yeah. Well, and I would just say that for the Finance Committee, I mean, our focus when we meet with them is the budget, just as this would be the budget. We wouldn't be dealing with other issues unless they're directly related to the budget. And any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, I'll be in touch. Tom, I'll be in touch. We'll schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions? We don't have a big crowd here today. Anybody have any comments? Board, otherwise?
No, I would like to thank Mr. Haddad, Superintendent Haddad, and Mark for working so hard, and actually all of the administrators at the school, Josh and everybody else, for working so hard to put together a budget that, I know I've studied it, every reiteration of it, as it's come across day after day, and I feel like I know it intimately. And I do appreciate how much work you've put into it. Thank you. And I know how hard it's been. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the other thing I wanted to make a comment on, so us not asking a lot of questions is not that we haven't looked at it. We've looked at it repeatedly. So we do understand it, and we don't have a lot of questions now.
With all the hard work they did too, just to let people know that getting a level-based budget is not easy and there's some pain involved. So in order to get it where it is now, some hard decisions had to be made, some educational issues. So it's not an easy thing to do. So when Steve and his team are together and they're trying to make this all work, some hard choices have to be made, and that's where they need to be congratulated, because they're going to have to make this budget work, even though they would like a lot more.
Madam Chair, just a quick comment, and I guess it's sort of to express a little disappointment, not in the budget, but when I look at the seats, and we have 4 people here, one of them an administrator, the other a reporter. And we're talking about spending $15 million. And it disappoints me that there aren't more people here to examine the budget and to ask more questions. I'm sure they're likely to come up maybe as the days proceed, but and I don't quite know where I'm I'm going with this, other than to say that it's disappointing that there doesn't seem to be as much interest as there should be, not just in spending the money, but the fact that we're spending money on this community's children and this community's students. And I think it's too bad.
Do you by any chance have a figure of a per pupil amount
With this budget?
with this budget?
We could do simple math.
Yeah, I can't do simple math without a calculator.
The last number I looked at was like $12,766, somewhere in there, but we'll let simple math.
That's the number of students, it's $11,756 per student for the total budget times the number of
Could you
students.
repeat that, please?
$11,756.51 per pupil.
How many cents? That's important.
51.
That makes all the difference.
They add up.
What's net school spending?
What's net school?
Minimum net
Minimum
school?
net school spending is, well, it's basically, hold on. Boy, you just, last minute calculator.
11,754,000.
No, hold on. So I've got to take this figure. 200 minus the over. So net school spending is 16,220 with 012.
I'm sorry, I meant per pupil. Sorry.
12,560. Wait, that math doesn't work, does it?
No.
So we're 1,000 a student under?
Oh, no, it does, because you're at 16 million. So it does.
We'll give you a moment, start over.
Putting you on the spot.
Well, that's because if you're taking the net school spending, that's not net of indirect costs.
Oh. Right.
I'm missing
So that's why it's a larger number.
Because it doesn't take into account the indirect costs.
Because by the time you get to the final budget, the 15 million includes the subtraction for indirect costs. The net school spending is just your chapter 70 and your local aid divided by the number of students.
So there's not a direct comparison for the per pupil expenditure that we have in this budget and what we're required to spend per pupil as part of net school spending?
No, well, the net school spending is a requirement in an aggregate,
Okay.
not per pupil.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just be interested, do they have the per pupil expenditure for several years back so that it can be compared?
We'd have to get it.
I have the numbers, Chris, we just got that today.
Chris, can you come
It's-
up
it's in
and
your
ask your
packet,
question,
but
please?
It doesn't have the per pupil costs.
I'm Chris Ricard, I'm president of the Teachers Association. I was just asking if they had the per pupil expenditure for the last, even back 10 or 20 years, so we can see what the trend has been.
And we don't have that right now?
But we can get it.
Well, 10 or 20 years, I'm not sure.
We can get something.
At least
right?
possibly back to 1995, right?
Okay.
Anything else? I guess all is quiet, huh?
Then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
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 And chair votes aye, and it is 6:34.